It's a good day, everyone, and we're here at Future Media TV and Ted Liman and Tools, Technology, and Teamwork Talk Show. And our host, Ted, is going to be talking about how to run $1 million project. I'm Russ Johns, and my co-host, Marion LaSalle, is here in the room. And it's amazing to think about $1 million project, Ted. And we are really looking forward to hearing how that takes place and how you get started on that, and how do you define a project like that? I mean, is it the value of the project? Is it just the budget of the project? Because as you know, budgets can change, and depending on what you include or exclude from the project can determine its overall value. So maybe you can speak to that directly. And thank you for being
right. Yeah, absolutely. First of all, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. By the way, I would like to give the kudos and all the honors to Future Media Association. If you guys have any kind of media needs, media solutions, they've been helping me out for 3 months at least, and they've been fantastic. So there's no better people than this. 2 people up here for future any kind of media needs for your company or organizations. By the way, my name is Ted Liman. I am an entrepreneur. I have 4 businesses, and I have $2.5 billion worth of projects that I have run. And that being said, I feel like I'd like to share this information of how to run $1 million project. The biggest project I've run is $1 billion project, and that project was building a refinery in Iraq, and I was doing it in Houston, right? So I mean, I think that was like the pinnacle of my achievement, I guess, in terms of the largest project I've ever managed. And so, answering to your question, Russ, so what is it about running a?
Russ,
I lost Ted here.
Okay, me too. I can't hear him. He's frozen. So we'll have to let him know that he has to start over.
I'm sorry. Are you okay? Connection okay?
No, your internet
connection is dropping on a little bit, Ted.
Okay.
We got audio. Keep going.
Okay. All right.
Russ, did you turn the recording on? I see it as off, and I can't answer the question.
I see it on the recording.
It's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I
must be doing some work here, so.
So you'll have to start over, Ted. I'm sorry, your audio quality has gone way down.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. We can do it again.
Take 2.
Take 2. So Ted, you have been running major $1 million projects, and you ran one from Houston across the world.
Yes.
Tell us more about that. How did you do that?
Well, it was a $1 billion project, and it was high profile, a lot of actions, a lot of project members involved, and the customer was, we have multiple customers. I mean, when you run those kind of big projects, the customers become your customers. So there's a lot of management to be done. And people ask me, what is the secret of running a project? What can you do? What should you do? And how do we do it? And really, it all goes back to 4 elements that I always use. One is you study the scope of work, you manage your resources, organize the execution, and then control consistency.
Yeah.
And those 4 things right there to me is everything. And there are different details for different projects, like what you need to do, how you do it, how you execute it, how you communicate with your team. There's a lot of those in any kind of projects. However, if you have these 40 items that I mentioned, you study the scope of work, you manage your resources, organize it, control consistently, you will be successful.
And part of control, I know, Ted, is a lot of projects fail because they lack a clear goal or a strategy, right?
Right.
And by taking these 4 elements and making sure that they're all well defined will help develop the strategy. And as you know, you can get into a project, you can get halfway through the project, and all of a sudden, your resources change or your scope changes. So then you have to actually control consistently, right? So each one of these helps afford the other one a little bit more success in the overall project.
Right. You're absolutely right. Changes is imminent. I mean, it will always happen in a project.
Sure.
The problem is when there are some changes, people panic. And some people who are very engineer-minded, they're like, okay, you know what? I've done it. No more changes. That's it. We're not going to take any more. You see, can you imagine actually walking into a steakhouse and you told them, for the sides, give me French fries. And later on, 5 minutes later, he said, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, I changed my mind. Can you do mashed potatoes? Or at least add to it.
Yeah.
What happens if that waiter actually said, no, too late, right?
What? What do you mean you can't change my order? Come on.
Right, exactly. And this thing here is only like, what is it? You go to a steakhouse, you're spending about like $75, $85. You imagine somebody spending $1 million in your company, and then they say, can you change this? Can you change that? And we said, no. Right. I mean, that's exactly what you want to do. You're trying to lose your customer. You get tired of working with him. You're trying to get rid of him. That's exactly what you need to do.
Well, and one thing you have to also make clear, though, and just for the audience, is that when a change like that is required by the client, that is called scope creep, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And with scope creep comes change orders.
That's right.
Is that how you would handle that? Is that how you typically handle that, Ted? Is a change order? Is that what is typical in the industry for you?
Yeah, that is absolutely right. People need to understand there are 2 different things: the scope creep and change order. Now, what I meant by that is this: scope creep is something that's creeping on you, something that's creeping up. You don't really know because it's creeping. You don't really feel it that it's right there. Right. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, now I have to build 3 refining towers. Now I need to provide 3 generators instead of 2 generators. Now I have to do so on and so forth. Now that's scope creep. Change order is basically, all those things are going to happen, and you tell your customers, absolutely, we can do that. I will submit a change order to you. Once they know what the change order consists of, talking about the pricing, the time impact, the resources impact, and any kind of liquidated damages impact, then they would actually say, oh, I did not know it's going to cost me another $150,000 and another 6 weeks. I did not know that.
Yeah.
See, but right. Once they know that, that's when they say, you know what? Don't worry about it. We'll stay with the way it is. Right. I mean, same thing. You go to a restaurant. You ask them to actually make you Wellington, right? You're about to be done, and then you tell them, you know what? Instead of beef Wellington, can you just make me just something simple, just a New York strip or so, right? And then they say, well, sir, our restaurant is full right now. We can do that for you, but it's going to take about 25 minutes. Is that okay? That's when they actually would rationalize of their changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's when they might say, I'm hungry. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. You could say, because you're not saying no, you're saying, yes, we can do this. And there will be a change in the duration, the project duration. It's going to be a change in the scope. It's going to be a change in the budget, some of the things like that. So what are some examples of, if you're building a say a $1 million home, what are things that you would want to think about or consider when you're calculating or making some speculation on these projects? I mean, what do you want to consider for somebody that hasn't worked in projects before?
Yeah. Well, first thing first, I always what I teach my my people is that first time you jump into a project, you need to study the contract. What's in the contract? What are you required to deliver? What do you need to deliver those? And how many people do you need? How much money do you need? And once you study that, then you understand exactly what you have to do. You see, a lot of people are not confident because they're not knowledgeable. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody asks you, "Hey, there you go. There's a podium. It's empty. Go and talk about 5 minutes or so." And you're like, "About what?" And if they say, "Well, something about beef Wellington," if you don't know anything about culinary, right? You're like, "Well, no, I'm kind of like nervous about it. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not confident." But if we say, "Talk about Blab,"
Yeah.
talk about how Facebook actually can help your business. 5 minutes. I'm sure at like 10 minutes or so, we're gonna have to tell you guys, all right, that's it. We said 5 minutes.
That's true. That is true. Anything you're comfortable with, you can actually articulate, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's fair. So once your team understands that the contract, they identify everything in the goals and the scope and the timelines, and the budget, then you decide, can we do this? Do we want to do this? Is this reasonable? Then you decide that you're going to take on a project. I mean, you could probably manage almost any kind of project. If you can manage $1 million project, you can handle any kind of project, as long as you have the understanding of what that project requires. Is that
right?
Is that what accurate?
Yeah, you need to understand what the project is, and at the same time, practice makes perfect. So you also need to have the experience of executing a project. Once you know that a project goes from certain stages, you'll feel comfortable running any kind of project, right? And what I really love, and people don't realize this, like Gordon Ramsay, I'm trying to get his his autograph. But I like that guy. He's really smart. But Gordon Ramsay, whenever he is in the kitchen, he knows how to actually orchestrate the projects. I mean, those are little projects right there.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody order an appetizer on the table, and the appetizer might be different. So the risotto and the scallop and the salad, they all must orchestrate to end at the same time so they can bring it to the table all together at the same time. Yeah. Now, what happens in that show when somebody actually came up with a scallop and everybody else is not ready for it?
Yeah.
That's when he becomes Ramsay. Come on, guys.
Yeah. He'll go all Ramsay on you, huh?
I have a big question from somebody who has never run $1 million project. Is there somebody in charge? I understand the word project manager. Is that the end all? He makes all the decisions. It's final when the project manager says no or yes.
Do you want to go ahead and answer that, Ted?
Yeah. Absolutely right. The project manager, I mean, yeah, even though today, the project manager is the one that makes the call. He is the one that gives the execution plan, and also gives you all the support you need to do it right.
I'm sorry, I did not hear much of that.
For some reason, your internet today, Ted, is not as consistent as it normally is.
Boo-hoo.
Can you hear me?
I see.
Okay.
I probably need to reset it later on.
So my question was,
Can you repeat
Who's in
that?
charge? Yes, who's in charge of the project? Who has the final say when someone says, I want to change order, I want to add, who has the final say? Is it the project manager? And is the project manager the person with the money?
Yeah, and it really is. The project manager makes all the calls. The project manager is the one that gives you the direction of how the project is going to be executed. Now, in such large projects, there is a general project manager, and there are just project managers. And those project managers can be the project manager for the engineering, for the construction, for the procurement, and I mean, you name it, for transportation. However, I always think of any kind of project organization like a triangle, right? I mean, the higher up your title is, the narrower the corner is. So at the tip, there's that one guy who is in charge of it. Like, for example, in the United States, the project manager is President Barack Obama. I mean, he has people working under him for defense, for transportation, for education, you name it. But he is the one that makes the executive decision if need be. Otherwise, he can always delegate it to Congress or anybody else who is in charge of.
Let's go back to the house contract too. In a building project, the project manager has to be responsible for everything in the contracted budget and the contractors that are working on the project. However, if the homeowner comes in and says, I want the stairway on the other side of this room, all of a sudden they're paying the checks. I mean, that could influence the project, right, Ted? I mean, then you have to go back to the scope and the scope, in the budget and the constraints on the time and recalculate all that and give it back to the owner, who then needs to make a decision about, okay, now that's complete change in the project. So as a project sponsor, are you willing to pay the extra money or $150,000 or $200,000 or whatever it's going to cost to make those changes?
Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That's exactly how you tackle any kind of change orders. And a lot of project managers actually fail because they feel like, here's the customer. And customers can be intimidating to them. And to them, it's like, oh, no, here's the customers. He is the king, whatever he is asking for. I mean, the customer is king, so we have to do so on and so forth. Now, if you are experienced, and if you are mature in being a project management, you understand exactly what change order means. It means that it's going to be a fair game if you actually go back to your customer and say, for all the changes that you want, here is the preliminary bill. Do you agree, or should we just keep it?
Somebody has to pay the bill.
Somebody has to pay the bill,
and that's what I want to make sure that we bring up to the table, because ultimately the project manager is responsible for all these things, as well as being responsible for holding the project sponsor accountable for what they're asking for. Because they can't just ask for anything and then just expect nothing to take place afterwards. I mean, they have to understand that, okay, if you're asking for additional work, there's additional cost associated with that.
Well, you have other people involved, right? So if you're going down this road and then you're building this house and you have the contractors in line and all of a sudden there's a change order, you have to take into consideration that affects people's teams, right? They have all these workers maybe coming in to paint that day. So they're going to have to say, well, you're going to have to put that off for a week because now we're going to put in a new floor. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I don't think I'd want to be a project manager. It sounds very complicated.
I love being a project manager.
It's actually Marianne, you know me, my personality. I'm not. I don't let people push me around. So with my personality, being a project manager, I'm very comfortable with it. However, I find it when somebody who are not what is it, who cannot be very mean like me, they might they might not feel comfortable actually pushing customers away, right? I mean, your customer is giving you $1 million, and then they say, "Can you please do this? Can you please do that? Can you have somebody actually bring 15 groups from the airport come into the hotel?" I mean, and you're like, yeah, $1 million, yeah, out of $1 million, yeah, that's fine, But bringing a group of 50 people from the airport to a hotel in Houston, each person actually can cost you about like $60. So it's eroding your profit, and that $60 actually is what is it? That's like a after tax money, the way I see it. So in other words, people are thinking like, oh, it's just a little here, just a little there, and believe it or not, I've been in situations where the customers actually say, Ted, this is not customer service. I said, it is customer service. However, I cannot give you things for free. No, I have to feed my project members. We cannot just sacrifice 200,000 just because you think it's necessary. Or no, here's something else that some people might not know. Some customer might come back, and this really happened to me. They say, that tower is really tall. What is the seismic rating for that? And I say, well, we give you California rating. They said, no, that's not enough. We need Japan rating for that tower. So that way, just in case of earthquake, we have the most rigid seismic rating for it. And I said, okay, I'll be back. So I returned to them and I said, this one here is going to cost 600,000 because we have to re-engineer everything that we've done for you, and it's going to take about 2 months. And they said, well, you can't do that. Yeah, they said, no, exactly. They said you can't do that. This thing here is important. This thing here, if you build it to what we want, the plan is going to be there forever. And you see, and this is the defense that project managers can use, and that's exactly what I use. And I said, in the contract,
right,
you bought California rating.
That's right.
I mean, that's what we need to. You bought California rating. If you bought Japanese rating, I would have given that to you. We would have started with that, but you bought California rating, so. If you want to change that, then
right. And halfway through the stream, you can't come back and say, hey, I just want you to add this other thing. I realize you just painted my house. However, I wanted a different color now. And it's no big deal. It's just paint, right? That's like, yeah, that's a $10,000, $20,000 tab, right? And picking up at the airport is no different. It erodes the project budget, regardless if it's my budget or your budget. And that's the thing that project managers really are, like yourself, Ted, you're really good at it, explaining the fact that if I'm not profitable, it doesn't help you, the customer, out, because then I can't help you on the next project because you helped me run myself out of business. I mean, it doesn't do anyone any good. So,
right. And people should not confuse with running a project and getting a project. Two different things. Running a project means you already got the project. So in other words, the contract has been solidified, has been petrified. It's there, it's carved in stone. So pricing, scope of deliverables, what you need to do, the time that it requires you to do it, the place of delivery, the place of the house you're trying to build, or the plant that you're trying to build, it has already been determined, right? That's what running a project means. Now, when you're trying to get a project, Now
Yeah.
it's going to be a different show than what we have right now. It's a different show, it's a different conversation, and it's a different take as well. So people should not confuse it with the fact that your project has been sold. You know exactly what you need to deliver to them, not what to sell them, because it's been sold. There's no more sales in there. So don't feel like you're obligated to give anything else outside the contract. If they can you do this, can you do that? I mean, go back to your contract. I mean, your contract is your Bible if you're running a project. Go back to it and read it and see, you know, I'm not required to do this. I'm required to do it, or what have you. But knowing the contract is going to give you the confidence of running your project successfully. You know exactly what you need to do. If you don't, your customers will take advantage of you, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah. They will take your lunch
take away
money.
your money for lunch.
Those bullies.
Yeah. Well, what else? What else to recap? You know, we're here on the show, Tools, Technology, and Teamwork Talk Show with Ted Liman, and we are talking about all of the things that take to run $1 million project and some of the things that you need to be aware of, regardless of the size of the project. You know, we've been talking about project management and business, and Ted, you've been very generous with your time and energy. And are there any things? Is there anything that we need to do to think about as we move on through the day about projects? You know, projects can be big or small. It's always when you think about it, if you break it down to the smallest task and you work backwards, it's, you know, you can break anything. Like you said, cooking a meal is a project, right? And a successful project is when it comes out in the meal, out on the plate, and everything's hot all at the same time. That's how you can define success. What are some other things that we can think about in projects throughout the day that we can bring success to?
You know, one thing that I always like to say to all my team members and to my children too, I want to make sure they learn this in their young age. I say, mistakes happen, but if you don't purposefully avoid them, then they're not honest mistakes.
Yes.
Makes perfect sense.
Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. You know how people always say like, "Oops, sorry, it's a mistake. Oops, sorry, it's a mistake." So that's why I said this. You know, I mean, it happens, but if you don't purposefully
if you choose
avoid
to
them,
repeat
then they're
it
not
again, you know, that's the definition of insanity. Expecting different results and connecting doing the same thing over and over again, right?
That's right.
So, well, thank you so much, Ted, for being here. It's a pleasure always, and we look forward to working with you every Tuesday, 9:30 Central Time here, and on the Tools, Technology, and Teamwork Talk Show. And it's a joy to see Marion. Thank you so much, Marion, for all you do, and thank you for being here today. And we're Future Media TV. And until next time, we will see you again.
Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.